Welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast, your source for information on hunting, fishing, and all of your outdoor passions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. My name is Mike Anderson, and today we're going to be talking about getting people into the outdoors. Now has never been a better time, and with me today is Cayla Bendel from the North Dakota Game and Fish. She is their R3 coordinator, which stands for Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation. So she is all about getting people outdoors and keeping them there. Cayla, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into your role with the Game and Fish?
For sure, yeah. Thanks for having me on today. So as you said, my name's Cayla Bendel. I am originally from Minnesota, from the Twin Cities, but grew up just spending a lot of time going up north and just spending a lot of time outdoors with my family. And just knew when it came time to go to college that this was the only thing that I cared about. So I went to school for natural resources, wildlife management up in Crookston, Minnesota, and just kind of finally for the first time became immersed in all these other people that loved hunting, fishing, camping, being outside, conservation, which is not something I found a ton of in my suburban upbringing. And yeah, just started getting into different types of hunting and fishing, got introduced to waterfowl hunting by some classmates while I was there, and spent time catfishing on the Red River, just getting to learn about all these other different types of hunting and fishing. And then I went to graduate school at North Dakota State University and kind of just ended up working my way west, now calling Bismarck, North Dakota home. Came out here for my first job with Pheasants Forever, actually, getting to do outreach with landowners, as well as kind of the first time I got introduced to R3, as Mike said, hunter and angler recruitment, retention, and reactivation, and just fell in love with Bismarck. There's just so much to do, really nearby home, so I can do stuff on weeknights and can spend like every weekend upland hunting or waterfowl hunting or heading west to the Badlands or fishing the Missouri River, Sakakawea. So there's just a lot to do close to home, and just fell in love with this idea of getting other people interested in the outdoors. And when this position opened with Game and Fish, I was just really excited to make a career out of getting people to love hunting and fishing. So feeling pretty lucky.
That's very cool. Yeah, growing up in this city and then moving out to like the Crookston and the Bismarck areas, definitely a change of pace there. If you're an outdoor enthusiast, you're in the right spot now.
For sure, yeah. And Bismarck's a nice combo of still plenty of amenities, but then you can just quickly get out of town. But yeah, definitely a little different than the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So fishing or hunting, which one do you like more?
Oh, I don't know. If you asked me that like 5 years ago, I would have said fishing hands down. I just grew up doing a lot more fishing. But yeah, since getting a bird dog and coming out here and just all the opportunities, I don't know. It's been really hard to pick. I do feel a little bit more like connected to the land and kind of connected to everything going on while I'm hunting, because there's just so much more for me to be like attuned to and notice and everything on the landscape. But it's a tough choice. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a hard time with that same one. My answer was it depends on the time of the year.
That's true. Yeah.
In the winter, there really isn't a ton of hunting seasons going on, so it's like, oh, I can just say ice fishing. But yeah, when they're both going on, that's awful tough.
Yeah, spring and fall is tough to pick between everything, but definitely kind of in the barefoot boat day mood right now. So
yeah, absolutely. The weather's kind of finally warming up, and like I'm from Minnesota, and fishing season just opened up a couple of weeks ago, so it's like, yeah, I can chase walleyes again. It's a good time.
Yeah, we can chase walleyes all year round here. So
yeah, absolutely. A little bit. I wouldn't say jealous because like I live in Fargo and I can. Go after the walleyes, but I've always been kind of a Minnesota guy for that. So even though North Dakota has some just absolutely incredible fisheries. So, getting back into the R3, like what exactly is it for people that don't know?
Yeah, so just it kind of became this bigger initiative in the mid 2008 2010 time. We just started realizing this nationwide decline in hunters and anglers. So just starting to see the average age of hunters and anglers increase, and then participation in license purchasing going down. There's other states that are being much harder hit than North Dakota, but kind of just started to realize this is pretty concerning for wildlife agencies because hunters and shooters and anglers primarily fund wildlife agencies and wildlife conservation work through the Pittman-Robertson Act, which is an excise tax on firearms and ammunition. And then the Dingell-Johnson Act is an excise tax on fisheries and boating equipment that place a pretty big amount of money, billions of dollars into conservation work. And then, of course, hunting and fishing license sales play a significant role in budgets of state wildlife agencies. So here in Game and Fish, over 90% of our funding comes from hunters and anglers in one way or another. So kind of concerning just for the places that we love and keeping these outdoor traditions strong in this country. So this R3 movement was born, realizing that we not only need to recruit new people, but make sure we keep our current hunters and anglers engaged, and then maybe try to reactivate those that kind of fell off for one reason or another. But in some ways, R3 has kind of always been a thing, I guess. At least at state wildlife agencies, that's kind of all the work that we do. I mean, we're stocking lakes to keep, anglers happy and having resources out there. We're managing wildlife management areas for hunting opportunities. We're pointing people to our website if they have questions or to buy a license. So in some ways, it was already a thing, but it's sort of just in this newfound light that it's really important and we need to keep people engaged. So I kind of get to just coordinate across everybody in our agency and keeping hunting and angling participation at the forefront of everyone's minds when they're making decisions, and just trying to think about how we can engage new people or find opportunities that we maybe didn't see before.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So do you spend a lot of time working with various, hunting clubs and firearm safety trainings and things like that?
Definitely. So we're all in this together seems to be the phrase of 2020. But we couldn't do this without our partners. So we work a lot with NGOs, non-government agencies, other state agencies, federal agencies. It's kind of just me in terms of solely dedicated to R3 here. So a lot of those NGOs, Ducks Unlimited, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Pheasants Forever, are out there on the landscape actually holding learn to hunt events, learn to shoot events. Engaging with their volunteers and just having a much bigger impact than I alone can have. So certainly lots of partners that are really invested in the R3 initiative. And then, I do spend, hunter ed is a big barrier for someone trying to become a hunter. It's kind of the first step they would need to take. So we're always trying to find ways to tweak that and make it more available. And I do spend some time teaching hunter ed courses, actually wrapping up a women's hunter ed course tomorrow night.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what sort of things have you done to make, finding or being able to do the hunter education courses easier for people?
Yeah, so COVID was a bit of a blessing in disguise, just kind of forced us to come up with some new options. And I think a lot of states found different ways, whether they went to an entirely online hunter education platform, and some people are deciding to stick with that now as things return to normal. We opted to do kind of a hybrid option where people took the online course and then they had to attend an in-person testing night. So I started this role in October of last year, so I didn't have to do as much as a lot of our other staff, but a lot of time last year spent traveling all across the state holding testing nights for hunter ed. But I think that just gave people that kind of have busy schedules, adults, things like that, were more able to fit in hunter education into their lives, I guess, with those online options. And then just finding new ways. So we've got text alerts so people can sign up and figure out when a class is posted, and then always trying to just recruit new instructors so we have more people to teach it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, you touched on a little bit with, 2020 and COVID and things like that. So how has that impacted what you do and in basically just outdoors in general? We've seen, a lot of people getting into the outdoors, interested. What exactly are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, so nationwide hunting and fishing license sales were up last year, presumably because people just had more time on their hands, they had more flexible work schedules, or they weren't working from home, just able to go do stuff more often. And then also just looking for safe ways to recreate. You could still maybe go fishing with a friend and, have your boats nearby, or just be in safe outdoor spaces, I guess. So really cool to see that it brought a lot of people to the outdoors, reactivated a lot of people. Nationwide license sales were up for hunting and fishing in almost every state. A few states that like Alaska, where residents had or non-residents had difficult time going to, were a little bit down, but really cool to see. I guess the key is just going to be keeping those people engaged now that things kind of return to normal and schedules start to get busy again. Just trying to remind people how much fun it was. And just hoping they keep outdoors in their mind. So I think a lot of states are focusing on retention this year. I guess that second R is keeping those people. Here in North Dakota, we were slowly starting to see like little declines, I guess, in hunting and fishing license sales, but then a big, nice spike last year. But I know that just this week, we saw that our fishing license sales are already down 10,000 from where they were at last year at this time. So still starting to see, people get back to being busy and maybe not finding time for it. So just trying to do things like send email reminders, buy a fishing license, remember how much fun it was, and then maybe really promote opportunities that are closer to town, or urban areas where a lot of our new recruits came from last year. I guess if they don't have time to travel outside of cities, maybe they can make use of some of our rivers in our cities here in North Dakota, or community ponds and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, retention is one of the 3 R's that I find super interesting. It's like, okay, COVID hit, we're looking for something to do. Okay, let's try hunting, let's try fishing. And it was great to see so many people get into that, but it's like, okay, how do we keep their attention when, everything's kind of getting back to normal? Like, do you have any tips or suggestions?
I mean, on our end, it's just going to be a lot of marketing. I guess if you are listening and you're a current hunter or angler, if you know anyone, just maybe re-inviting them out. They're starting to get busy again, but take them out fishing or take them out hunting this fall, and remind them how much fun they had, I guess. I don't know. It's going to be a tough nut to crack when some of it just comes down to things we can't control, like getting back to work, or kids being re-engaged in sports. But another cool thing we're seeing, I think nationwide, is an increase in kids shooting on high school trap leagues. And that's been cool to see how their parents get reactivated. And now, their busy schedule of a sports schedule is actually kind of contributing to them maybe becoming a hunter if they're interested. So, or even like high school fishing leagues are becoming pretty popular. So we're not necessarily maybe competing with sports anymore if it's a sport that they're competing in, I guess.
Yeah, it's very cool to see in those like trap leagues popping up and fishing leagues and stuff like that. Just really seeing the kids get introduced to the outdoors. I'm also very interested in the recruitment side of things, just from a personal standpoint. Like I have 2 daughters now. I've got one that's just turning 1 year old here, and then another one that's 5. So what sort of tips or advice would you have for me to try and really get my daughter excited about the outdoors?
Yeah, for sure. So for a long time, we really hit on youth recruitment, I guess, because it's just everyone loves to see, take a kid fishing day or youth hunts. And they're still really great, and it's still really, fun to see the kids out there. But one of the things we started noticing is like a lot of those events were attracting kids that were already maybe introduced to the outdoors. Their parents already do this stuff, so they were likely already going to become a hunter or angler, or at least exposed to it. And then if you did manage to find a kid whose parents weren't really into this, that attended those types of events, and they loved it, they maybe don't have the capacity, at age 6 or 7 to then go back and be a full-time angler if their parents don't do it. They can't drive. They don't really have a lot of say in what they do with their time. So for a lot of our youth events, we're really trying to make it a family focus, getting everybody out there, getting the family engaged, and then really trying to target those kids that maybe don't already have these opportunities or don't have a parent that would already know kind of where to take them, etc. But of course, taking anybody new and taking kids, it needs to be fun. I feel like they need to have success, some success. That doesn't need to be a limit of walleyes, but they need to catch a fish and feel that experience, and probably want to focus on like good weather days and just going out in like short stints. You don't want to make them sit out all day in the rain for 8 hours, and just making it about more than just fishing. Maybe they just end up playing with bugs on the side of the creek or whatever it might be. But I think when we talk about getting anyone involved in the outdoors, just getting them to, love the outdoors first, and then maybe, fall in love with being successful kind of second. They should just enjoy being out there, and not be so focused on successfully, I guess, hunting or fishing until they've developed that love for just being out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you make some great points, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there with wanting to enjoy the outdoors and not worry so much about like, oh, I got to catch a limit of fish, or I got to get my daughter or son on a limit before they have any fun. Like a lot of it's just about being out there and spending time with the family. Just like you mentioned, it reminds me of that Trace Adkins song. You think we're just fishing.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually that's what me and my dad danced to at our wedding.
Oh, that's cute.
At my wedding, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a very outdoorsy person, and like if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are too as a listener. So what sort of things can we do as avid outdoorsmen to help with the 3 R's?
For sure. One of the biggest things we're going to start to promote here and really market is mentoring, which you've maybe already heard me mention a couple times, but just taking somebody new with you. And of course, if you have kids, I think that's going to be your starting point, and that's going to be your focus. Of course, you're going to want to get your kids interested in the outdoors. But if you're sort of maybe past that, your kids have grown up, or you don't have kids of your own, whatever it might be, thinking about other people in your life that haven't had that exposure, or maybe they used to hunt, but it's been 20 years. I think you can just almost look around at the Thanksgiving table or to your coworkers or maybe your neighbors that you share some venison sausage with, and just think about whether or not they've gotten a chance to be exposed to the outdoors. I think those are some easy places to start, to find someone to take. But if it's just 30% of hunters replace themselves by creating a new hunter, we'd have the problem solved. We'd be back to where we're at. We'd be sustainable hunting numbers. So that's a pretty encouraging stat. And I guess the other thing is to think of it as, you don't need to take 6 new people out every year. In fact, it's probably going to be a multiple year mentorship with somebody trying to totally create a new hunter or an angler. I mean, just think about all the time we spend trying to learn new techniques or learn where to go or buy new gear and just learn from experience. So it might be a multiple year investment, or just maybe keeping up with them via text, like if they have questions. But mentorship is going to be a big one. I guess beyond that, just making sure you do your part as a hunter and an angler to be respectful of other people out there, of the resource, just to leave a good image. Like negative things like poachers and just negative images of hunting and fishing don't help this being carried on, and it doesn't help our image, I guess. So just being respectful out there, being mindful of things that you post on social media, and then just doing your part to tell your story about what it is that really gets you interested in hunting and fishing and why you love being out there. I think that hooks people more than just saying like 7-man limit with a bunch of dead ducks on a tailgate. Can you talk, if that's, you're really proud of that experience, I understand, but maybe talk about how cool it was to watch the ducks like bombing in that day, or how much fun you had reuniting with like old high school friends, or just doing a better job of telling why we love the outdoors. I think will get more people engaged than just, seeing photos and stories that they don't really relate to yet.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. That reminds me of the first time that I ever went out waterfowl hunting. Granted, we did have a good day. I mean, we were probably close to limiting out if we didn't. But like, there's two things I remember most out of that day. And the first one was, it was my uncle that took me, Uncle Brent, and he's a huge waterfowl guy. And the first thing I remember is like, you have to have every part of your skin covered. Like if they're seeing bare skin, they're going to see you. So he handed me this I didn't have a face mask. So he handed me like a purple face mask. And I'm like, that just seems really weird. But he's like, no, just trust me. Your face is covered. They're not going to see that reflection. You're going to be okay. And the second thing that I never forget is that first flock of ducks that came in and flew over the top of us, and that just whooshing sound of air on their wings. Like, I had never heard that before, and it's just something that I'll absolutely never forget. It's just, it's stuff like that kind of puts you really in the moment and the things that are really remembered versus just, oh, I shot a limit that day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like most of my most memorable times afield or a stream have very little to do with success. And they're usually just like hilarious inside jokes or whatever crazy things that happened. But definitely. And those are the moments I think that hook people. I think even when people have a hard time talking about why they hunt or fish, it's those things like the sound of ducks flying over your head that really keep them coming back. And I think those are the things that new people will connect to more than, 7-man limits, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Or like, you know, people ask me why I like turkey hunting so much. And, you know, you don't really talk about, oh, I shot a grand slam, or, you know, like I've filled every turkey tag so far, which I haven't, by the way, and love to. But, you know, the coolest part about turkey hunting is, you know, waking up in the spring, you've been cooped up all winter long, you know, in a lot of areas, not every area, but for me, cooped up all winter long, and to get out there, watch the sun come up, and if you found birds roosted, like hearing them gobble their faces off, like you don't hear that anywhere else. And then to like have them come into the decoy and like strut up, put on a show, that's what will absolutely hook a person, 100%.
For sure. I mentored a new hunter, a woman, this year in turkey hunting. She was not successful, but on the first morning, we just like got up at sunrise, and we just walking through. We were hunting in western North Dakota, so just walking through the Badlands. We had gotten out there Friday night, so we hadn't roosted any birds, and just trying to kind of like walk and listen for gobbles and see if we could get in close to something, and just heard like one distant gobble. And she just turns to me and she's like, oh my gosh, I love turkey hunting so much. Like, it's only been like 20 minutes and nothing's really happened. And, but yeah, it's just for people that don't get to experience this stuff. And I mean, of course, I still love that too, but it's just crazy how little it takes to hook somebody, I guess.
For sure. Turkey hunting, all it takes is that first gobble, and like nearly everyone is hooked after that. Yeah. So we've had a couple cool little stories here, but I'm curious on your favorite stories. Do you got a couple for us? I'd like to hear your favorite hunting story and your favorite fishing story.
Okay, let me think about it. I should have thought about some of these beforehand. This one's just coming to my mind, so I'll tell it, but there are definitely so many stories. But for a hunting one, 2019, so 2 years ago, I decided to go on an archery elk hunt with my brother. That's another thing I really love about the outdoors, is just like, it's probably my favorite way to connect to the people that I love. It's super cool. I just wouldn't have the relationship I do with my brother and my dad and my husband, and now increasingly some friends, if we didn't spend time afield together. My brother's super quiet and pretty reserved, but we just have this incredible connection just because of time spent outdoors, and we're both willing to drive however many hours to meet up to do stuff together, and that's really cool. But so I was doing all this prep work. I was shooting my bow every day, like trying to hike with weight on my pack, because we were doing a backcountry archery elk hunt. He had worked out there for a summer and hunted before. After he was done with work for the summer, he had gotten a cow. But I was doing all this prep work, and ended up, I'd asked him, like, when do I need to buy my tag, etc. And then he's like, oh, no rush. And then I went to buy my tag in like July or August, and they were sold out of
Oh no.
over the counter, because it was an over the counter tag. But after a certain date, they open it up to residents to buy extra tags. And we had, I guess that just hadn't been a problem when he had hunted out there. And I remember being super devastated, like spent all this time and work, but he had bought his tag. And so we had talked about different options, but just decided I still wanted to go. I still wanted to be a part of the experience. So I went with him, just me and him. We backpacked in like 3.5 miles and we're camped off this creek bed, and just had a really great week. But it had been like 3.5 days of we would hike up the mountains in the morning, and then just kind of side hill all day because of the wind, and then hike back down to our camp at night. And we hadn't seen anything. I hadn't seen an elk. And every morning he was really good. He'd wake up and say, like, do you still want to stay? Do you want to go? Because you get a fishing license with your elk license. And he was just like, if it's not going well, we can leave, because I didn't have a license. And I was like, nope. Every morning I was like, nope, we're going to do this. And so still hadn't seen anything. On the fourth morning, we heard a bugle that we were kind of interacting with a little bit, but never ended up seeing it or getting an opportunity. And then towards the end of the fourth day, we were on this ridge and we saw elk on the other ridge, crossing this opening. But we figured by the time we got down and across, that it's just going to be too late to try to relocate them. So we just went down at our normal pace, and we just were like, we'll just pick a draw and sit here. And like, we sat down for 30 seconds and you could hear it crashing in the woods. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's elk right there. So laid down, and there ended up being a bull like really rubbing on this tree that was thrashing. And he started moving closer. There ended up being some cows like on the edge of the opening at like 30-40 yards, but this bull was coming towards these cows. And I couldn't see them because I was laying down. So I was just watching everything like unfold through my brother's eyes. And I watched him draw, but then heard like a loud noise, which in hindsight, I realized the bull was at like 30 yards. But it suddenly, like after he decided to like charge at these cows, so then it ended up being more like a 55-yard shot. But he shot, and then I, it's just like, what happened? Did you hit it? And I've never seen my brother that nervous. He was just kind of like freaking out, and it felt funny to like be the one to try to calm him down. Like, I don't know. I know you're a good shot. I'm sure it was a solid hit. We'll find it. And it took us a long time of blood trailing. We were kind of like off on the wrong foot to start. We thought something was a blood drop that wasn't, but found the elk at like midnight, spent like 4 hours cutting it up, quartering it. And I've like never been that exhausted. I run marathons, and I would say that was harder just after like 4 days of hunting really hard. And then it's like 2 a.m. and you're just like, I sat down at one point on what I thought was a rock and was actually just like one of our meat bags sitting there just because I was so exhausted. But carried meat to the creek to cool down overnight, and then we slept for a couple hours, and then spent the whole next day packing it out. But yeah, just a really crazy way to connect with my brother. Like right after we found the elk, he just gave me a big hug, and I can probably count on one hand the number of times that we've hugged. And then just passing each other on the trail the next day, packing meat out. He was just super chipper and would like give me a high five every time I passed him, which is just, not like him, like out of character, but it's just a really unique experience. And just, I still feel like so close to him because of that trip. And I feel like you just push yourself to some extreme limits sometimes, and that's the best way to bond with people. But
great story.
Tough to top. Yeah, we need to go. But he said we need to go back, and it's my turn this time. But
yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on the elk stuff. Like it's such a challenge. Like I've done a couple of marathons too, and I've done a couple of elk hunts, and it's tough to say which one I was more tired after because like the marathon was brutal because I did not properly train. That was my fault, 100%. But the elk one, like we went to this area in Colorado where like there's a road system on the top, and you would go down into the draws to like hunt and stuff. And we ended up shooting one, and obviously it was at the very bottom of the draw. So to pack it out, we had to go all the way up the mountain.
Yeah.
And that was brutal. Oh, just had, multiple trips backpacking it up, but like, it's so worth it. You think about it, it's, oh, I'm so sore, I'm so tired, but then you think again, it's like, I have an elk on the back of my back right now. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah, it's a crazy feeling. So it was like 3.5 miles back to the truck. And my brother, I'm really small, and my brother's not that much bigger than me. And so it took us, I did 2 loads and he did 3 loads. So it was like 14 miles for me and 21 miles for him. And yeah, it's just the most painful thing. But much like marathons, I feel like you're just like, this is the worst thing ever when you're in the moment. And then you get done, you're like, we got to do this again.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. And just to be able to share that with somebody else and, always have that story to look back on, it's, it's something that's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. I think you asked me favorite fishing story too.
I sure did.
Which, I don't know, again, so many, but I'll just say, again, because it's fresh in my mind, we've kind of developed, me, my dad, my brother, and my husband, a little bit of a tradition where we go sturgeon fishing on the Rainy River on Minnesota fishing opener, just because we've had success that weekend. The weather's usually nicer than it is earlier on in the sturgeon season, and then everybody else is walleye fishing and nobody else is sturgeon fishing anymore. So that's kind of nice. And so last year we weren't able to go because of COVID. So reinstated it this year. And I had a pretty, rough turkey season. I did not fill either of my tags, which is still hard to grasp. But I could have hunted one more weekend that we were going to go sturgeon fishing. And I just didn't want to give up that tradition, I guess. I was still really bummed about turkeys, but
I asked you that question. You like hunting or fishing more? There's your answer. You went out fishing. You burned a turkey tag. So
I know, which it might have been a different story if my husband hadn't gotten his too, because I love turkey meat. At least we had some in the freezer. But so decided to go. It was just I hadn't seen my dad and my brother in a while, and it's just too fun to pass up. So we went, and things were actually pretty slow, I would say, than we've had experience with. But it was super. It's always super wavy because boats are driving by a lot. And so I was just like, I'm gonna just reel in and check my hook. And it's a dumb story because I didn't even know I had a fish. I was just gonna reel in and check, and then there was a fish on, and fought it for like 25 minutes, and ended up being our biggest sturgeon that we've boated. 70.5 inches.
Dang.
Which is officially, lots of people say, because I'm just small framed, but people say it like, oh, that fish is bigger than you. But first fish I've caught that's legitimately bigger than me.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, instantly renewed my spirits. I was just really bummed about turkey season. So, just instantly renewed my spirits, and also just a fun weekend in the boat with them. It's always like wavy and you're trying to reel in big fish and you're falling, and just lots of good times in the boat. So yeah, that was a good recent one. Those fish are crazy. They're just so old and big, and I don't know, they're incredible.
That's one thing I haven't done yet that's on my high bucket list, because it's easily attainable. I just haven't done it yet. It's a lot of fun, and even for new anglers listening, it's a pretty simple. It's just worms on the bottom, so it's not a very intimidating type of fishing. Yeah, just make sure to bring the right pole though. If you're trying to fish doing a light walleye rod, you're gonna have some trouble.
Definitely, yeah, you're definitely gonna need some heavier gear to fight those fish.
So, like, what kind of rod and reel line do you use?
Yeah, so I just have, we muskie fish quite a bit. So it's actually just one of my older muskie rods, heavy action. I couldn't even tell you what brand rod it is, but I actually have this. On it is an old Abu Garcia can reel that's purple. And I still remember I was like 9 or something. My dad bought it for me at a muskie expo in Minnesota because it was purple. And I was super excited about it. I didn't even know how to use it, and I couldn't use it for a long time. But still been a trusty reel. Has reeled in a lot of sturgeon for me in my first couple muskies. But yeah, then just I think there's 50-pound braid on there, and then you do like a swivel, and then just monofilament lead and a turtle hook.
Okay.
Big ball worms.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever hook up any big walleye when you're up there too?
We catch a couple walleyes sometimes on the worms, but never any big ones. We haven't, but I'm sure it's a possibility.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of them, if you're going during Minnesota opener time, they're kind of venturing their way back into the lake since they're all spawned out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and every once in a while, one of us will just reel up and jig for walleyes instead. Or if you're sore from fighting big sturgeon, you can just jig for walleyes for a little bit.
Oh, my arms hurt. I caught so many giant sturgeon. What a terrible problem to have, right? Oh, great stuff. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. If people are interested in learning more or, just want to follow the stuff that you're doing, what you're up to, how can people connect and learn more?
Certainly. So I guess specific to North Dakota, we've got a lot of great resources on our website if you're new to hunting or fishing, to figure out where to go, what you need, etc. But one of the things we also did recently is start a blog. It's called Drift, and I'm kind of the main author of that, but we'll occasionally have some guest authors as well. But it's kind of about all the things we talked about today, just all the diverse opportunities that are out there, and just the reasons I love spending time outdoors. The stories won't be about necessarily giant fish, but more about just like how I feel out there and why other people should get involved. So yeah, it's called The Drift, and you can subscribe to it on our website at gf.nd.gov.
Okay, so what sort of stuff's on there right now to give people a little taste of what's out there?
Yeah, so we just started it. So there's an intro piece, just a little bit about like who I am and a little bit about R3. And then there's a piece on morels, actually, just kind of some tips and some gear you might want if you're going to go try to forage for morels. And then the last one I wrote was about packing like wild game on the go. So just kind of some recipes or ideas about trying to eat primarily wild game, so it's hard when we're doing stuff every weekend. So I try to find ways to like bring it on the go, I guess. And then this next one will hopefully be about some spring fishing here. So
very cool. All right, you caught my attention on the morel stuff. So I've been, I've done okay on shed hunting, done okay on turkey hunting, but I just fail miserably with morel hunting. I just can't find things. I don't know if it's just my attention span or my, not the right attention to detail. But I would love some tips and tricks on morel hunting, especially North Dakota. Like I don't think about morels in North Dakota. I think about prairie grass and not really finding morels. Where do you look? How do you find them?
For sure. So one caveat is that this year has been really dry, so I'm a little nervous about whether I'll be able to find many. But true, North Dakota's a big prairie state, so we're a little limited, but they obviously like, or maybe it's not obvious, but they like dead and decomposing wood. So lots of the river bottoms and creek bottoms are a good place to start. They like dead elm trees if you can find them, or dead box elder and cottonwoods are a good one. They also like disturbed areas. So like a river bottom that's recently been burned can be a really good place to start to look. And I'm pretty new to this too, but I often find them at the stumps of the trees, or like around a little radius, I guess, around the stumps. And I guess another big thing can just be timing. So this time of year, I'll start to just go look or kind of pay attention to if I see other people have started to find them, because they'll sprout up pretty quick. So if you just happen to look too early and then you're like, oh, well, there weren't any there, and maybe they were there a week later. So just paying attention to, I think 53 degrees is the soil temperature, but yeah, I just kind of now I have photos on my phone and I pay attention to the date and figure out I should go check. But yeah, just looking for dead and decomposing wood and areas where there's maybe a little bit more moisture. And then once I've found some, just return to those areas. They're usually good places to start, or just try to find areas that look like those. Okay,
that makes sense. So, I mean, is there a good rule of thumb on when you should be starting to look? Like maybe a certain level of green out there, or seeing budding trees or anything like that?
Yeah, this is just my own noticing, but I know that a lot of people link like crappie spawning to lilacs blooming, but I feel like morels fall in there too. So kind of all the same time frame. I usually find them in this like mid-May to early June. I guess just depending on the kind of spring we're having, or even just like local different regional areas that may or may not have gotten like different moisture or minor differences in temperature. But yeah, I would say like mid-May to early June.
Okay.
Up here.
So you're
Up here.
telling me I'm going to have to choose between crappie spawning and morel hunting? Huh?
Yes. Or maybe morning of crappie fishing and then.
Okay, there you go. I can get behind that. I just gotta, take a full day out of it, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and at least they don't care about time, or you don't have to try to catch them. So.
Yep.
You can go whenever.
That's it's a wonderful time for your 3 R's, your recruitment, retention, reactivation. If you can pack a day where you wander through the woods and find a couple morel mushrooms and whatever random stuff you find in the woods that kids will be super excited about, like, sticks or old forts or whatever. And then you head into the boat and then you just hit a big limit of crappies. Like that's a pretty good way to get people hooked into the outdoors, not gonna lie.
Definitely. Yeah, I used to always loved crappie fishing, but I used to just kind of hate spring. It was always like muddy and just gross, and I felt like there was nothing to do. And now that I've slowly picked up turkey hunting and foraging, and then crappie fishing starts, it's like, whoa, spring is the best, and it's hard to pick what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I am in the same boat with you there.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. A lot of knowledge sent our way there, and hopefully this segment can, motivate people into getting others into the outdoors.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You just heard our segment with Cayla Bendel of the North Dakota Game and Fish on recruitment, retention, and reactivation of people to the outdoors. This is a subject that we're super passionate about here at SCHEELS, and it's just so fantastic seeing people get out and enjoy new experiences in the outdoors. I love to do so personally, having a 5-year-old daughter and another one coming up, and just some of the best memories I've ever made have been outdoors, and just seeing it through their eyes is something really special. So if you ever get a chance, we recommend, taking a kid or taking, somebody that doesn't spend time in the outdoors out into the field or on the water. And with that, we want to thank you all for listening and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. Stay tuned for future segments and visit our social media pages, SCHEELS Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates.